And as a reminder, for more Microsoft webcasts, you can visit microsoft.com/webcast. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's MSDN webcast, Guided Hands-On Lab, using Visual Basic to create an Excel chart based on SQL Server data. And now, without any further delay, I'm going to turn the floor over to today's presenter, Cameron Fillers.
Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Cameron Fillers, and I'm going to be your presenter today for the Guided Hands-On Lab using Visual Basic to create an Excel chart based on SQL Server data. So, just to let you know that there are a couple little things that you might want to know. As Tracy's already discussed with you, there's a couple different ways for you to go and ask questions. One of them is in the questions and answers portion in the little console in the lower right-hand corner. I'll show you how to go and ask the question within your lab during the time that I actually do the presentation and when I'm actually sharing my console. A couple of little things for you to know, that there are rewards for using actual joining these labs and watching these on demand as well as live labcasts. First one is if you register for one, you will get selected chapters from Francisco Bellini's book, Programming Microsoft Visual Basic 2005, The Language. You'll also get 35% off estimated retail value of select Microsoft Visual Studio 2005 books. And if you register for one, the last thing you'll get is a Visual Basic 2005 keyboard shortcut reference poster. So that's if you do one. But knowing all you guys, what you really want to do is do at least two. You do two, you'll get one complimentary copy of Visual Studio 2005 standard software. So pretty much all you have to do is register for 2 labcasts. Doesn't need to be within this month. It just has to be before our promotion is done. And pretty much when you register for 2 at the end of the month, we're going to take a poll, find out who's eligible for it. And if you are eligible for it, then pretty much what you can attempt or expect is that the second week of the next month, you'll receive your free copy of Visual Studio 2005 standard software. So that's what you want to do. If you haven't done so already, schedule up for another one, and there's a couple good ones next week. So let's go ahead and get started with what we're going to be doing today. Now, today it's 5 exercises. First one is creating an Excel workbook project in Visual Studio 2005. The second one is pretty much laying out the spreadsheet, nice and simple. Third one, hooking up the event handler. Fourth one, adding code to import data. And fifth one is adding a chart. Now, the way that this is currently set up is there's 5 exercises, but the first 3 exercises you can pretty much do all right together. So what I'm going to do in order to save some time, as well as the fact that it'll allow us to go and kind of move through it a little quicker, and I think you guys can do the first 3 all on your own, is I'm going to go and present the first 3 exercises in a group, and then I'm going to go and take a break and allow you guys about 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long you need, in order to work on it, and we're going to help you out with it. So the first one we're going to be doing is just essentially creating an Excel workbook project. The second task will be inserting a hyperlink in the Excel document that we just created in exercise 1. And the third exercise is going to be creating the event method and linking the Excel target to this actual event code. So without further ado, as you can see, I'm now sharing my application. You should be able to see my Labcast actual desktop right now. There's a couple little things for you to know. On the right-hand side, there's the different lab manuals. These are the lab manuals that has all the information regarding this actual Labcast. In the lower right-hand corner where you see Need Help with the Get Help Now button, if you have a question during your Labcast or running into a problem, all you have to do is go ahead and click on that and then ask a question. And then one of us proctors, either myself or one of my associates will be able to come on over and help you out and pretty much hopefully get you back under your way. Also, let's say right now my current desktop is an 800 by 600. So, this is good. This is good for going to doing a presentation because some of you have large desktops, some of you have very small desktops, and I don't know what you have. So I'm going to be doing the presentation in 800 by 600. But if you're working on this at home and 800 by 600 is far too small, what you can do is you can right-click on the desktop. You can go on down to Properties, and you'll be shown the Display Properties pane. Scroll on over and click on the Settings tab. And under the Settings tab, what you can do is you can choose to increase your screen resolution from 800 by 600 to 1024 by 768, pretty much whatever's convenient for you. You can also go and change your color quality, but I suggest that you leave it at 16-bit for this because it increases speed a little bit and makes it a little faster for you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be opening up Visual Studio 2005. There's 2 ways to do it. First of all, you can go to Start, can also go to Start All Programs, Microsoft Visual Studio 2005, and click on the link right here, third one down. Or if you go back to the desktop, you can click on Start, and then just click on it right here in the quick launches in Microsoft Visual Studio 2005. Doesn't matter, whichever one's your preference. Go ahead and click on it, start it on up again. Now, as you can see, I've started up the application. Visual Studio 2005 is up and running. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating a new project. Now, how to do that is go to File, go on down to New Project, and I'm going to select an Office project. You see where on the left-hand side there's Tree View, there's Visual Basic, there's Windows, Office, Smart Device, Database, a couple different options. Office is chosen for you automatically by default, but in case it's somehow different, just go ahead and choose Office. And what we're going to do is create an Excel workbook. And right now, so I've chosen Excel workbook. I'm going to go on down to Name, and I'm going to type in Excel Chart Demo. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but just go along with the lab manual as well as that's how it's going to be saved. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. That's going to get started up. It's going to say create a new document. Sure, why not? I'm cool with that. I'll create a new document, so I'm going to click on OK. All right, give it a second to come on, bring up some new information. So here we go, good to go. Now we actually see our Excel chart. Now this is where I would stop with exercise 1, but that's just a couple small little things right there. So I'm going to move on to exercise 2. So exercise 2, I'm just going to go and create one of these random cells. And so I've chosen one, B4. I'm going to go up to Insert. Now what you might have a problem with is that you might not be able to actually see the insert. You have to make sure you actually click on one of these cells and make sure you're actually inside of the sheets. So now we're inside Excel Chart Demo, Sheet 1. Click on one of the cells, go on up to the top where it says Insert, hit Insert, choose Hyperlink, and as you can see on the left-hand side, there's the Link To section, and there's also Text to Display. On the Link To section, I'm going to go and choose Place in this document, and under Text to Display, I'm going to get rid of Sheet 1 exclamation point A1, and I'm going to put in Create New Chart. Okay. Type the cell reference A1. Everything else looks good. So go ahead and from there click on OK. So there we go. We have Create New Chart. Just going to go ahead and make it so it encompasses the entire Create New Chart link that we just had. So there we go. That is the end of exercise 2. As you can see, that wasn't too bad. Now let's go ahead and do exercise 3. So what exercise 3 is going to go over to the right-hand side where the Solution Explorer is, and we're going to choose Excel Chart Demo. As you can see, we already have that selected. Excel Chart Demo.xls. Here we go. And then we're going to access the thisworkbook.vb file. Okay? So we're going to right-click on it, and then we're going to go down to View Code. And what this is the actual functions and methods that have to go along with this Excel Chart Demo.xls project. So now that we have this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add a private method. So I actually have these as snippets on the left-hand side. If you go to the left-hand side where the toolbox is, you'll see Excel SQL snippets, and you can see exercise 1, 2, and 3. These incorporate from exercise 3 on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type these in, but you have these actually at your disposal on the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a private method called thisworkbook. Workbook underscore sheet follow hyperlink. So what this is going to do is that when you actually go and double click on it, we're going to set it up so it calls this method automatically, and it's going to perform the actual code inside of this method. So by val target as. Now you want to make sure that this is all on 2 lines, what I'm typing right here. So this very first section has to be on 1 line, or else it's not going to go and perform correctly. So pretty much what this is doing is a second object, which is target, is going to be a Microsoft Office Interoperability Excel Hyperlink object. And so this is going to handle the hyperlink. So sheet, me.sheet, follow hyperlink. Okay. Now when I hit enter, okay, so that section right there needs to be private sub, and we need to go ahead and add in the end subsection. Okay, so this workbook needs to be sheet follow hyperlink. Now I'll go ahead and double check that, guys, when I get you guys to go off and work on it. And next part, we're going to add some code actually on the inside of this. So the code that we're going to do is if target name, actually if should be capitalized, if target name, so pretty much if the thing that you actually click on, the button, equals create new chart, then load data and create chart. So load data and create chart is a private method that we're going to be creating in the next exercise. So pretty much you have to make sure that when you go back to sheet 1, create new chart has to be the exact same thing as what you type in this workbook.vb. So as you can see, create new chart, exact same thing. Case sensitive, because what it's doing is it's comparing two strings. So the name of the chart as well as whatever you type in right here, they must match up. And so as you can see, load data and create chart has a little blue squiggly lines underneath it. That means that currently it can't actually find the method, but that's okay because we're going to create the method in exercise 4 when we get to it. So what I'm going to do now is that's the end of the first 3 exercises. I'm going to give you guys about 5, 10, perhaps even 15 minutes depending on how many questions we have. And you guys can be able to work on it. If you haven't started up your labs, I'm sure Tracy once again will go ahead and post that information for you to go and start up your lab. You can follow along and you can ask questions. And make sure that if you're having problems with the lab, just go ahead and ask the question in this little question panel in the lower right-hand corner of your lab, as well as you can ask questions in the question manager, but we have a much easier time helping you out if we can actually see what the problem is. So there we go, 5 or 10 minutes, and I will see you guys in a little bit. Everyone, that was the end of exercises 1, 2, and 3. So now we are on to, what is that, exercise 4. Here we go, adding code to import data. Now this is going to have 4 tasks. First task is going to be adding code to import data class. And then we're going to do is create a reset workbook method. And then we're going to write code to pull information from the database. And then the last task is going to write code to insert data from the database into our Excel project. Okay? Now, I'm getting a couple questions from you guys. For instance, on the left-hand side in the toolbox, here are all of the snippets that are going to be pretty much all the code that you could possibly write in this entire manual for this exercise are contained as snippets on the left-hand side. So you can actually access it from there and use it and post it in there. The numbers are off by 3, so exercise 1 is actually exercise 1 is actually exercise 3, exercise 2 is exercise 4, and exercise 3 is actually exercise 5. Also, if you go over to the right and you look at the manual and you're trying to go and actually copy and paste stuff from the manual, there is an actual, when you start up your Labcast, there's a disclaimer, which I'm guessing none of you actually read, which states that there is no perfect copy method using the virtual Labcast. And what you have to do is, if you go over to the very upper left-hand corner, there's something that says Machines, and then something that says Action. Now I'm hovering over the action, and one of them says Paste Text from Host Clipboard. Now there are large sections of code here, so what I recommend you doing, because what that's actually you doing is using JavaScript to go and paste that code, not actually accessing the traditional clipboard, which you're used to, is I would open up a notepad. So just go to Start, Run, within the actual console, type in Notepad, and then whatever you want to copy and paste, I would just select it, copy it, and then go inside the Notepad, go to Action, and then paste text from the clipboard. You want to go and allow access. Now, the thing is that you're going to have to double check this, and you have to look at it because it's not 100% sure. So the snippets, if you go and you actually double click the snippets, that code is code that works. I double checked it and I've used it before in Labcast, and that works no matter what. But if you go and you copy and paste it from the lab manual, you're going to want to go into Start, Notepad, or WordPad, whatever you want to use, and do the action, paste text from the clipboard, and then double check it, because you're going to run into some problems. It's not going to work perfectly fine, okay? Now also, someone else asked a question about wanting to see what the actual text looked like. So I can't actually display it all too nice and easy, as well as the fact that I am giving a presentation. So just pretty much go and look in the actual lab manuals and follow along there. If you have any problems, just go ahead and ask a question in your Need Help section, and one of the proctors will be able to help you out. Now, if you have guys looked at exercise 4, there is quite a bit of text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the snippets for exercise 4, and then I'm going to do my best to explain to you what each line of code is doing, so you have a better understanding of what's going on, and it's not just me going and doing snippets and then pretty much running code and voila, it magically works. So I'm going to try to explain to you what everything's happening, why stuff is working the way it is, and I'm going to try to highlight the sections. Now there is a bit of a delay, so if everything's not actually happening one-on-one, I apologize. So let's go ahead and get started. So now we are at the very beginning. We are back inside of our thisworkbook.visualbasic file. I'm going to go ahead and move stuff on over to the left a little bit so I have a little bit more room, and I have access to my snippets. So at the very beginning of line of public class this workbook, what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to be adding some imports. Now what these imports are going to allow us to do is actually access information from our database. So here we go. Double click on exercise 2, task C, and as you can see, we have import system.data.sql client. Now what this will allow us to do is, as I said before, just pretty much access and use SQL objects that allow us to go and connect to the database. As you can see, I'll go and point those out to you. So that's an absolute necessity. If not, our code will not compile. And what we're going to do is go back to public class this workbook. We're going to add 2 private actual variables. Private Excel sheet, which is an Excel.worksheet item, and then Excel chart, which is an Excel.chart item, which, since these are located right beneath this workbook, these 2 items are global, which means that we can access them throughout the entire class. So that means that we don't have to keep on declaring them. We can just access them once and keep on messing around with them whenever we want to. So right here, underneath the private sub this workbook _ sheet follow hyperlink, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the actual next snippet. It doesn't really matter where you add this, as long as you add it inside of the end class section and between an end sub, so that you actually go and create a method. What this method is called is reset workbook. There we go. Added all the text right there. Scroll up a little bit. So as you can see, underneath this workbook _ sheet follow hyperlink, we created the reset workbook function, or method, however you want to call it. And what this will do is when we call it, it'll get rid of all the original worksheets. As you can see, this comment says right here. So what this does is that whenever we go and we have code that accesses the Excel worksheet and pretty much goes and deletes worksheets, usually what happens is a little prompt pops up and says, are you sure you want to delete this, yada, 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 all that kind of stuff where it just sort of gets tedious and annoying, especially when you want stuff to be automatic. So what we're doing right here with this line is we do this application.display alerts equals false. So pretty much if any one of those ever pops up, it's just going to go, no, it's not going to go and display it, because it's going to go and check this right here, this variable, this display alerts, and it's going to, since it's set to false, it's not going to warn us. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to delete all the sheets that aren't the active one. So what that really means is that, as you can see on the right-hand side, let me go ahead and scroll over a little bit. We have our Excel chart demo, we have sheet 1, we have sheet 2, and we have sheet 3. So sheet 1 is where we went and added our hyperlink, and we don't really need sheet 2 and sheet 3. So what this is going to do is we're going to declare a variable called worksheet as an Excel worksheet. And so for each worksheet in me.worksheets, which is for all of our worksheets that we actually have inside of this actual program, if the worksheet that we're working with is not currently the active sheet, which is currently the sheet that we are clicking on and actually running the, you remember where we have our hyperlink? So when we actually have our hyperlink and we're in that sheet, that is currently your active sheet. So sheet 2 and sheet 3, which actually has nothing on it and are not the sheets we're currently working with, those are not active sheets. So what this is going to do is going to check through all the sheets and find out all the sheets that are currently not active sheets and delete them using this ws.delete. So this for each method is pretty cool. What it does essentially is just pretty much goes through the range of all the sheets that you have. So since there's 3 of them, it'll access sheet 1, sheet 2, and sheet 3, and then pretty much do this if not statement, see if it's the active sheet, and if it isn't the sheet, it'll run this code right here, which does a delete. So there you go. That's what this little section of code right here does. And also, because of the fact that you can actually, when we're done with this, you can click on the link and it's going to create a chart for you, as well as it's going to create a SQL data pool, which pulls out information from the database. And if we go and we click on that button multiple times, what we want to not happen is, pretty much go and create multiple charts. So what this is going to do is it's going to find whether or not there's an actual Excel chart, this dim, which creates a variable, CHT, as Excel chart. And what this is going to do is that for each chart that we actually have within the entire application, we're just going to go through and do a CHT.delete. So it's just going to delete all the charts. And catch, if there aren't any problems with it, what we're going to do is, pretty much what this exception is doing is absolutely nothing at all. It's just there because it's a requirement, but we're not going to do anything with it. As you can see, we actually don't run any code. And what finally does is this section right here is that no matter what, finally will automatically call and automatically run this code. So once everything is done accessing inside of the try statement, it'll do this application.displayalerts equals true. So up above, we set it to false inside the try statement so that it doesn't let us know that we're trying to delete something. And since we just want to do that so we could delete a couple pages, we went ahead. And finally, when we're done running the code, we set it back to true again, so it will display those alerts. Okay? So that's what that method does. What we're going to do now is we're going to have our get data reader, which is the next snippet. Going to go ahead, double click that. It's going to add this code for us automatically. So we have our private function, get data reader, as a SQL data reader. This add statement and SQL data reader, it means that it's going to return SQL data reader. And let me go ahead and move this information on over to the right so I can read to you this little comment that it has. So what this is going to do, it's going to create a link and actually connect to the XPV Lab. As we go over to the top of machines, this computer is called XPV Lab, and the database contained on it is SQL Express. It's a traditional database that's usually installed with Visual Studio 2005. And what it's going to do, the database it's going to connect to is going to be the Northwind, and the integrated security, the way that actually connects to it is going to be true, so it's going to be an encrypted connection. Then we're going to create a command, which is going to be our SQL command. And as you can see, if you're typing this out, this is going to be quite not fun for you because of the fact that there's no IntelliSense. It's not going to tell you if you do anything wrong. As well as you can see that it spans multiple lines, which is why you see all these underscores. So what this is do is going to select from the actual Northwind database. It's going to select like categories, like category name, and it's going to do an inner join, and it's going to pull out a bunch of information from the database about the average quantity as well as the category name, and it's going to display that information to you. Okay? So without going and explaining all the actual what this line is doing, if you actually have any questions for me, just go ahead and put it in the Need Help section, as well as you can also post it inside the Question Manager. And what this is going to do right here with this line of code is going to do a connection.open. It's going to actually connect to the database and perform this pull of this statement right here. And then it's just going to pretty much return this information. So it's going to return the actual connection to the database, and then we'll be good to go. So that'll end the function. Next section is going to be the setup worksheet section. So pretty much, we have one section, one function which deals with going and removing stuff from the Excel sheet. We have another function which is going to be accessing the database, and then we'll have another function which is pretty much getting things set up within the actual worksheet. So that we have one that's destroying one that's pulling data, and one that's actually setting up the data that we pull. And I believe we have one more function, which is called load and the format the data. So now we have the worksheet set up. We're going to do a setup worksheet function. And what this is going to do is this direct cast. What it's getting is me.worksheets.add. And we're going to create the active sheet, and we're going to go and cast it as an Excel worksheet right here. And then we're going to go and set it to Excel sheet. Now, Excel sheet was the private. If you scroll all the way to the top, Excel sheet is the Excel worksheet that we're working with. Scroll on back down. So we're going to direct cast this current worksheet and add it as Excel sheet. And then we're going to take that name of the Excel sheet and change it to average order volume and set it to the Excel sheet.name. So as a little tab that's displayed at the bottom, it'll say average order volume. And this is going to copy the field names to Excel and bold the column headings. So with direct cast, we're going to access Excel sheet.cells 1/1, so the very upper left cell, and we're going to go and get the range of it from the data that we pull in. And what we're going to set as the very top one, the header, we're going to set that to average quantity, and we're going to set the font of that to bold. And then with the next one, Excel sheet 1/1, which is the very upper left, right one, we're going to do, and we're going to set that to category name, and we're going to set that to bold. So pretty much, we're going to have two columns. First column is going to be average quantity. Second column is going to be category name. And then we're going to go and get the information. And using our next method, we're going to post the information underneath it. So our next method is the load and format data method. As you can see, it takes in the SQL data reader as a parameter. So it's going to use the SQL data reader that we pulled in from the previous earlier method, and it's going to bring it on into here. We have dim_i and dim_j, which is just usually counter variables, and we're going to use those in order to go and place the information within the Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to copy the data in from the SQL data reader. We're going to set I to 1, and then while we can actually still read data from the data reader, which is essentially saying while we still have data within the actual select statement that we sent to the database, we want to perform this. We want to take I and add I+1 so that we don't overwrite the current what we just set, average quantity as well as category name. And then for j equals 0 to 1, so pretty much I'm going to do this twice. I'm going to do Excel sheet.cells. We're going to set I. So very first one is going to be 2. And then j+1, so it's going to be, so for 2:1, we're going to get j.string. So pretty much it's going to get the data reader. It's going to access column right here. It's going to be column 0. And so pretty much that's going to be the average quantity, the actual name of it, which will be category name, and it's going to set that to string to that actual cell. So once again, when we go up, let me go and scroll up a little bit. So when we go and we actually access our select statement, we're going to select categories.category name, and then we're going to take the average of the quantity. Okay, so those are our actual two columns right there. Excuse me. So what this is doing right here is the very first column is going to set 0, which is going to be the category name, to that column or to that actual cell. So it's going to keep on doing that. And then we're going to actually close it. And then we're going to do a direct cast, where we go and we actually do an Excel sheet.columns 1 and for the range, and we're going to actually auto-fit it. And then we're going to perform a direct cast of Excel sheet.columns 2. So this is a sheet where we actually have the actual average quantity. So right now it's just going to be a standard number, and what we're going to do is we're going to set the number format of it. And the number format is going to be 0.00, so it looks like a traditional currency number. And then we're going to perform auto-fit, so it actually arranges it so that it's wide enough. So it's essentially the same thing as going to the very top of the column, and let's say that it's far too small. You double-click on it, and it automatically sizes it. So pretty much it looks neater. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create another method. And this last method is pretty much the load and create chart. Now, if you remember from earlier, let me scroll up a little bit. When we do this workbook, sheet follow hyperlink, the target name, if the target name is create new chart, which is our one hyperlink that we created, it's going to call the load data and create chart method. Now that method is the last one we just added. This method is going to call the 4 methods that we just currently created, the reset workbook. So it's going to pretty much remove everything from the workbook, get rid of any charts that we created. It's going to set up the worksheet. Pretty much, since it removed everything, what it needs to do is create another sheet that has the average quantity as well as the category name in it, and pretty much set it on over there. Then we're going to go and create, call the get data reader method, and once that's done, it's going to go and do that select statement, pull it from the database, and it's going to set it to the SQL data reader, a DR variable that says SQL data reader, and then it's going to throw it on into the load and format data method. So, and what that does is it pretty much goes and accesses that Excel sheet that we just created and plays all that information into the correct tables. Okay? So the correct cells, I should say. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and hit the play button. What this is going to do is going to allow us to start debugging. You can actually run the application in a couple different ways. First one is going up to the top and hitting this little green arrow. It says start debugging. You can also go to debug and do start debugging under here. And you can also hit F5. I'm going to go ahead and hit F5. So, it's done debugging. It shows up the Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Create New Chart. Notice at the bottom it has Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3. I'm going to click on Create New Chart. And as you can see, it deleted Sheet 2 as well as Sheet 3 because of the fact that Sheet 1 is currently my active sheet right now. So then it went ahead and created another sheet called Average Order Volume. First cell name in the upper left-hand corner is average quantity. The second one is category name. And so it pulled out all that information from the database, condiments, dairy products, performed an average calculation within the database, and it went ahead and set that information right there. So that is essentially the end of exercise 4. So exercise 4, it has quite a bit of code in it, but you can use the snippets. You can also use that copy and paste method that I showed you, but you have to make sure you use the action at the very top and do paste text from host clipboard. And you have to double check it because it's not 100%. And so what I'm going to do, give you guys probably about 10 or 15 minutes to work on this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're here to help you, and hopefully you guys get everything up and running. The last section is taking all this information that we just used, as well as using this current exact sheet in order to create a chart. So I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. There we go. Exercise 4 is done. Now it's time to move on to exercise 5. Exercise 5 will be adding the chart. It will be 2 tasks. First one will be create the create chart method, and the second one is change the load data and create chart method. So pretty much add a method, change one of our previous methods to incorporate the new method that we just added, which was create chart. And then there we go. So as you can see, I still have my Excel chart up. I'm going to go ahead and close that. No, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to save changes. Also, a couple of different questions that you guys brought up, which are pretty good ones. Some people might have problems with the fact that when they're working on it inside of the virtual labs, they can't actually see, like their mouse sort of disappears. To address that situation, what you can do is you can go to Start, you can go to Control Panel, and once you open up Control Panel, you can go to Mouse, and just pretty much change your pointers from the traditional Windows default to change it to Windows black, and that should solve your problem. Whenever I've had an issue with it, that's always solved my problem. So just to let you guys know, if you need to go to, just ask a question and I'll help you with it later. So back on track. Last thing we're going to add is the wonderful create chart method. So what this is going to do, it's going to access the information from the second snippet, second page that we just created, which is the average quantity page. And what it's going to do is when I add it, let's go on up to the top. Here we go. Here's our create chart method right here. And so what that's going to do, it's going to allow us to create a chart. And what it's going to do is going to go and set to Excel chart, which if you remember at the very beginning, it's one of our private variables, private Excel chart as Excel chart. So as you can see, it's one of the ones we created at the very beginning, so you know kind of how this is flowing. So we're going to take that and have our Excel chart. We're going to do a direct cast. And what we're going to do is we're going to use as the very first variable, we're going to go and we're going to add the Excel sheet that we were working with earlier. And we're going to cast it to Excel.chart. So it's going to take our charts and we're going to add to it our current Excel sheet, and we're going to direct cast that to a chart. And so that's going to be set to Excel chart. And then we're going to take our cell range and we're going to access it from doing a direct cast of Excel sheets cells 1-1, and we're going to do it in Excel1.range. So it's going to pretty much take our information and it's going to direct cast it to an range, and it's going to set it to cell range. So if that's kind of that's kind of hard for you to understand, what it's essentially taking is a bunch of information. It's going to pretty much put it into like kind of like a bunch of information, as in like an array, or it's going to put it into a container, so like an array or a vector, but that vector is going to be called cell range. Okay? And what it's going to do is this section right here, I don't have enough time to go and explain everything that's possible that you can do with it, but you have Excel chart and chart wizard. And what you're able to do is you're able to go and set a lot of information within there. You pretty much set your source as cell range, so it knows where to grab the information from. And so it's going to take the current region. And what it's going to do, it's for the gallery, how it's going to display it, it's going to do an Excel constants Excel 3D bar. And so if I go back and get rid of this a little bit and just do constants, as you can see, when I do that, there's a whole bunch of different charts that are available to me. You know, there's a toolbar, title bar, you know, pretty much there's a whole different things that you can work with. And right now we're just using like one of them. So if you have some time and you want to mess around with it and you want to see what's available to you, you can pretty much set this up however you want. So I'm going to put it back to the constants Excel 3D bar. And you can, right now it's going to plot it. And one of the ways it's going to plot it is going to use the Excel row column and the columns within the row. Okay? So it's going to use, traditionally, it's just saying look at the columns within the Excel document. And then category labels equals 1, so it's going to have category labels. Series label 1, so it is going to have series label. Legend is false, so it's not going to actually display a legend of all the information inside of it. And the title, we're going to set the title of it should be the Excel sheet.name. So it's pretty much going to take the name of the Excel sheet, which is the one that we're currently direct casting it. So it will be average order volume, which is where we went and set it up earlier. Go ahead and hover over this, see what the problem is. Let me double check what that actual should be. Excel.constants, Excel 3D bar. Okay, looks good. Worry about it later if it is an actual issue. Okay, then we're going to take the Excel chart.name, and what we're going to do is set it to the Excel sheet.name and append to it the chart. So pretty much before, it's going to be the name of the chart. It's going to be average order volume, and then we're going to set the name of it actually in the actual sheet area to average order volume and then chart. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the chart group, or just going to take the chart groups of 1, and we're going to typecast it to just a traditional chart group, and we're going to set the width of it to 20, and we're going to vary it by categories true. So pretty much this is just going and allowing us to go and set up how we want the chart to be displayed, how we want it to, how to work, which is going to be just with chart groups. And the title of it, we're going to set the size of it to 16. We're going to give it a shadow, and then we're going to go and actually set the line style of it to an Excel solid. So just pretty much, once again, this is just doing layout. That's all it's doing. It's going and just setting it so at the very top of the chart. I don't know if you guys are looking at the lab manual. If you look at the top of the chart, just the way that actually displays the header of the chart, and everything else has just been how we're going to go and display how the chart looks, whether or not there's going to be bars, there's going to be a legend, and so it looks pretty good now. And the last thing we're going to add is that in order to actually do that, we created the method, but we actually haven't made a way of actually calling that information. So what we need to do is, actually I think it's right above there, is go to the load data and create chart method that we had before. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in the very last snippet, which just calls the create chart. So create chart, what it's going to do right there in that section, it's going to go down to right over here in private sub to create chart and pretty much do everything inside of it. So let's go ahead and run the application again. So we have that. We have our create new chart actual link that's on inside the Excel spreadsheet. You click it. Okay. So it created the average order volume, and then at the very end, it created the average order volume chart. So as you can see right here at the very top, remember how I told you how it was going and setting it up so just the way it looked? So it set the actual main title of the page to average order volume, and it set up the border, it set up the font size. As you can see, there's no legend in here. It has the produce, seafood, grains volume. So it's just pretty much using up all that information and displaying it as such. Okay? So there you go. Now you guys have learned how to go and pretty much create a chart as well as pull out Excel spreadsheet information or whatever information from a database and placing it inside of an Excel spreadsheet. That is the end of exercise 5. Just want to remind you guys that I, as well as a couple other proctors, will be around for the next 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on however long you guys are asking questions, to help you out with the exercises as well as to get you on the road. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's what we're here for. And I hope you had a great time and hope that you learned something. So take care and see you again.
Excellent. Thanks, Cameron. I do want to remind everybody that they can print a PDF of today's session. To do that, just go to the File menu in your upper navigation bar. Now, please feel free to continue to submit your questions into the Q&A panel found at the bottom of your live meeting screen. Also, I'm going to be posting a survey here in just a minute. If you would all please take a moment to fill it out before you log off. We do appreciate your feedback. As a reminder for upcoming and previously recorded webcasts, you can visit Microsoft.com/webcast. You can go here to access this webcast, which should be available for download in about 48 to 72 hours. And if you have any webcast content ideas, something out there you'd like to see and haven't yet, we'd love to hear from you. Just take note of this link here. And for anybody who's interested in receiving a free 14-day trial of Microsoft Office Live Meeting, you'll want to visit Microsoft.com/presentlive. And then a little incentive for filling out that survey. You're going to be automatically entered in to win this 30-gigabyte Zune digital media player. That gives you a little incentive to fill that out for us. Like I said, we do appreciate your feedback. And here is the survey. Please follow the links provided to complete today's webcast evaluation. And with that, I do want to extend a very special thank you to Cameron for your presentation today. I also want to thank the audience for attending today's MSDN Labcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this will conclude today's session. The audience may now disconnect from the audio portion of today's presentation.